Yeah, hold on. Does it have to? How come it just has your name?
The only one on this. Oh, there.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's 90-second commute to witness.
I know, but you're not on there.
It's our name.
They can see me. Or wait, can they? Her video.
Oh, Clint is on the screen. Okay. Good morning, Clint.
Good morning, you guys. How are you doing?
Just fine. Okay, it's according to my watch, it's a minute after, so we will, this is Bob Camera. I am calling the Canby Traffic Safety Commission meeting to order on September 13th at a little past 8:30. Let's go around the table and introduce everyone. Like I said, my name is Bob Cameron. I'm the chairperson for the Traffic Safety Commission.
Deanna Balcarb, I'm vice chairperson.
Eric Van Zandt, member. Spencer Pollock, Canby Public Works.
Council President Tracy Hensley, I'm liaison to this commission.
Jackie Jones, the secretary.
And Clint Coleman, member.
Karen Hill, citizen.
Thank you very much. Has everybody had it? Thank you, Jackie, once again for sending out a terrific for the August 9th meeting and a list of to-dos. So I appreciate that to-do list. We'll talk about that in a minute. But is there a motion to approve or amend the minutes for August 9th?
You can make a motion.
Okay, I motion to approve the minutes for August.
Second. Okay, all those, any discussion? If not, all those approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved.
Sharing the screen.
Okay, we have a citizen with us today. So as our follow our order, we'll ask if she has anything to say. Please note our format for taking citizens input is the first month that you come, we listen. And we will ask questions so that we gain understanding, but we won't have a problem-solving discussion until the following month, which gives everybody in the room an opportunity to think about what they're going to say and go and explore. So it's much more of a informed discussion. Karen, Jill?
And then do you recommend that the same citizen come back next month to be a part
Yes,
of the discussion?
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Well, I live at 903 Southwest 13th Avenue, and I've lived there almost five years. And I think it was about 4 years ago, I came to the committee meeting. It was when it was at the library. And I was very concerned about the lack of traffic oversight enforcement on my street. Now today I'm here 4 years later and I'm concerned, exasperated, frustrated, and a little angry. Because in this 5-year period that I've lived there, I have seen very little police response to the speeders, racers, very loud mufflers on these little, I call them clown cars. They're little tiny cars with big noise coming out of them. And they speed by my house. Now in front of my house is 25 miles an hour. I'd say about 95% of the people are way exceeding that. And then just down toward Elm, a little ways, it turns into a school zone, 20 miles per hour. And these people, they are coming away from that speed zone of 20 or they're going toward that speed zone of 20, they don't slow down. And they're probably going 30, 35. All the way, even into the speed zone. And I've seen very little police enforcement in that stretch. These speeders, they obviously have no respect for the law, they have no respect for the people in the neighborhood, and they have no fear of the police. They just continually speed through there. And so that's why I'm frustrated and exasperated, because these people need to be ticketed. They need to have consequences of their bad choices.
Well, you're very articulate
Thank you,
and very clear.
thank you.
And it is actually a school zone in front of her house too. It is a school zone. Because of the zone.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the school zone ends just short of my house.
Your house is located, I'm not familiar with the address, so I don't know. I'm familiar with that strip of road. Are you across from the school field?
No, I'm further down. I'm the last house on the left before you get to the entrance to the park.
Oh, okay.
So you're very close to that flashing sign.
Yeah, the
Okay.
flashing sign that everybody ignores. That one.
I won't comment on that right yet, but okay, but that.
Yeah, yeah.
That actually.
She's always been very clear on things. In fact, she used to be my neighbor. And remember when we had to go up against the truck master?
Oh my goodness, and we won.
And we won. We went to Highway Master,
But
just
no.
before my
I'm
political journey.
across from Aspen Way, Deanna.
Yep, it's Aspen Way.
I could right across the street from Aspen Way. That
Okay,
was-
so you're at the start of the.
Just right
started
before
right
the
before
school.
the school field started.
And they come around there from
From
Safeway,
99 and.
and zooming around there
Or
and.
past-
Mhm.
I've been passed on that stretch.
Yeah, that stretch, it does seem like I've traveled it as a commuter and people are crazy because you're behind buildings and they feel like no one can see them, right?
Mhm, right, and
Yeah.
truck drivers used to be
Yeah.
the safest
dump
people
truck.
on the road. They are not anymore. There's a lot of truck traffic because they're hauling gravel and other
Yes.
things to construction sites over there on that side of town. And the truck drivers are just as bad as everybody else. They're speeding through there, but they're heavily loaded trucks. There are baby carriages being pushed by people. There are dog walkers all on both sides of those streets.
Yes,
So it's not in the school zone, but it's in the 25 miles, correct? Because there's a
Yes.
sign right there.
well,
But the
most
20
of-
miles starts really quickly after my house.
Yeah,
I suspect that whole street is 25.
The
Yeah.
whole street is 25, if I remember.
It's all the way to Ivy is 25.
and there's the warning sign.
It's
So it should,
25 all the
that
way to
warning sign is just
Yeah.
before that. That's not accurate.
Isn't it? No, 35 is that just,
Oh, yeah?
Teakwood.
yeah.
Teakwood. Does it go to 30? Okay.
Right there.
It turns into 20 miles an hour, just a few yards past my house toward Hope Village. It's right in front of my neighbor's house. It says school zone 20 miles an hour. But I'm 25.
But if they can see the sign, they should be
Okay.
preparing to slow down by the time they get to your house.
Do you think you could put up the speed data sign?
Yes,
Okay. What I'm asking Spencer, he's a super nice person and he's very, very busy man, but he's been gracious enough to, put up the little speed data device in these various areas. And we'll be able to get about a week data, a week and a half data of all the cars that are going by. It'll give us the numbers and the speed
Are
of
we
the
still able
cars.
to do that for the other end of?
Pardon me?
Are we able to still do that for the other end of 13 as well?
we could. Do you want to do it,
Well,
like right in front of Hope Village stretch. Try and get both of those before the next meeting. Try to look at.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'll be able to get the data. Yeah,
I can definitely get you.
yeah, bless your
one.
heart.
I think it would depend, do we wanna do a 2 week for each one, or is 1 week sufficient, you think?
School's back in session, I think a week will be good.
I think,
A week is, I've been finding the week data is. We need at least 7 days,
yes,
at least, sometimes.
Well, you need all 7 days of the week because
Yes.
people aren't gonna be as busy on Sunday maybe, or, yeah.
Or they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, sometimes the traffic flow dips a little bit, as we'll see, but not significantly, you know? And so that's a good data. I have some assumptions, historical assumptions regarding 13th. It has become a bypass street. And access to out of town traffic, so it is a very, very commuter type of roadway, not just a neighborhood.
Was it like 2,200 cars a day? Was it like 2,200 cars a day?
Something like that.
Well, we'll see, I can pull up we've done no studies of that, so I'll get that whole study reference. Okay. We'll have that data, and then we'll have a discussion next month, please. Please come back, all right,
I will.
that's good.
Thank you.
Is there any other, you're welcome to stay for other meeting, or you
I have
can leave.
another meeting, so I've got to get going.
Bless your heart, thank you. Any other questions before she leaves?
If I can make one last comment, because I've been there for 5 years and I've been doing a study, kind of informal study of the traffic flow. I have noticed that it's commuter traffic. It's really heavy in the morning when people are going to work, really heavy in the evening when you assume they're coming home from work. But there's a lot of traffic in between too, especially trucks.
So we will get you a good,
Yeah.
so you'll get a copy of this, whatever we put together.
Okay, now is this possibly going to progress into a law enforcement involvement also? Because
We
they,
don't know for sure.
okay,
We can't commit to anything.
no, you can't commit, but based on your experience,
Their job is a recommendation, but
okay.
I'll tell you it's possible.
Okay, well, you're on the council, you're the boss of the county.
Excellent.
County Police Department.
And you know what, it's unfortunate that Officer Smith isn't here, because normally he is here in our meeting as well, and I'm sure he would take your message to heart, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
These people need
And
tickets.
he'll probably be here next month, so
Okay,
I'll talk to him and see if he can be here next month.
thank you.
You bet.
Bye.
All right.
Anything's possible.
I, now it's just gonna, I feel for her pain that, you know,
When she has to reverse out on 1013.
It's like me.
pardon me?
She reverses out like Jackie on 1013.
Oh, man,
too,
you
so-
guys are gutsy. If I lived in some place like that, I would always back my car in, man, because
I
that
drive
is.
the car a lot,
Yeah,
but I don't drive as much anymore.
Oh, that's nice.
I'll give you
Trying
credit.
to get out of your house at 8 o'clock before.
Yeah, you're like stuck in your driveway for half an hour.
Okay, let us proceed. We got quite a few things that we want to kind of cover. Old business, update on comprehensive plan effort. I sent you folks an invitation to the summit, comprehensive plan summit. It is tomorrow evening, Thursday. Starts at 6, I think.
6.
At the Canby Police Department. It's there because they've got a big kind of room that they can, you know, spread out a little bit better. That goes for Spencer too, because he's a citizen here, living here. Everybody is invited to that meeting. And I would really recommend that citizens go to the meeting because, and I'm saying it to this thing too. Because this is your plan. This is what the city's gonna look like for the next 20 years. And you wanna have an impact? Get up and get down there and learn what's happening. I've staged 3 conversations about this topic with different community groups, and that feedback went to the city also, so this is one more times to get feedback and to get input. And to hope you shape your community. Okay, I've done what I did. Pre-construction updates. I don't know, yeah, we'll take that up later. Action items from the last meeting. Okay, I'll try to quickly go through these stuff. We are tracking those letters that we sent. We sent 3 letters recently that have really need for action on them. And one is requesting from this county to reduce the speed from 13th Street through to the bridge down to 30 miles an hour. And I know Jerry told me last time that the county is examining that. And we haven't heard back yet, but we will continue to press it every month. If we don't hear something back by next month, then I'm just gonna figure out what to do next. And the other one is the sequencing of the intersection lights at 13th and Ivy. And we were talking about a dedicated turn lane. But I was there the other day at the adult center, I looked at that thing, and there is a dedicated turn lane. There's already a dedicated turn lane.
You just don't have a protected turn.
Yeah, there's no protected.
The light doesn't, so I mean, one of the concerns was the geography of the intersection, whether there wasn't a dedicated left turn lane that you could sit in before the lights go, you know? And lo and behold, there is a dedicated turn lane. So what it is really the sequencing of the lights. And I'm not an engineer, but as I looked at that light, there is enough lights up there. It isn't like you have to put new lights. There's enough light spigots
I like that word.
for the lights to flow through.
And light lenses.
Oh, but we like spigots, we like that.
I suppose lanterns are better, you know. Yeah. So it's a matter of changing the sequence, and that's probably much more complex than I'm making. And there was one last letter.
It was the right turns onto 99. And that's gonna probably die, but do you have more information than what Jerry provided at the meeting? If you want the full update, you can go back to the city council meeting of last week and view my liaison report. I had Jerry come up and just give an update on all 3 of those letters. And he explained every one of them. But it doesn't sound like ODOT's gonna be super cooperative on the right turns.
So we have it documented that we did try or something.
Yeah. We do, so.
And the other one was the truck.
Oh, the truck signs, they're examining
Truck
that as
signs.
well.
And so we put that out. We haven't heard back from the county about that too. We will keep track of those. I believe I sent you the digital copy of those letters. I was supposed to send you the
Yes.
digital copy of those letters. I
Sure,
think I did.
let me check right now.
I'll reach out to Kelsey Jeter. She was the person who made concerns about,
This is Darcy Estates,
pardon me?
in Darcy Estates. The speeding in Darcy Estates, was that
Yes,
her?
yeah, and, I sent it out this morning.
Good job.
An email to her telling her that, please contact me. Earlier, she had received a copy of the study that we had done for that area. And so I'm arranging for a telephone conversation since she didn't appear. So that we can have some conversation, talk about it. In effect, if you remember that, I have it here. What it showed was there's not a lot of volume here comparatively. And also there seems to be the few speeders that they are seem to be consistent at a particular time. And it seems to be, I don't know for sure, but it seems to cluster around one or two people. Because it's always the same times, you know?
So like a stakeout.
So what I'm thinking, and I was hoping to talk to Officer Miller, and I will talk to him to see about, with this one, it's really interesting, we can really zero in on a particular cluster and time, that maybe he could go and. Also, it's a need for citizen advocacy. If they can identify the person who is this particular speeder, then the police can probably be much more effective in their enforcement. I'm not asking for people to tell them, I'm asking them to participate in making their citizens, their community safe.
Yes.
So that's the message I will be sharing, and if you guys object, then I'll take your feedback, if not, I will share that with.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to handle it. I mean, their neighbors know who they are. Tell them.
I mean, we can't go and be there every moment, you know? All
But
right,
we do know it's a certain time of day.
pardon me?
We do, from that data, we did know it was a certain time of day.
Yes, and that's the point.
Yeah.
And, okay. Eric will be doing something on red flags today, I believe. Okay, we're gonna be talking about Elm Street today. It's on the agenda, I believe. I'm going down. Okay. Let's go through we did that. Radar enforcement presentation, if you guys are ready, or you want to go a little later.
Nope, go ahead. So before he sets this up, I'll give a quick, my interpretation and a review here. You can go full scale on that too if you want. So I think this is gonna be a little bit of work in progress. I've already spent a couple months on it. And, this is the first draft. And I think this is gonna be at least a two-part presentation. That my goal is to present will be a video slide and then a, attachment with documentation. I relate this to skydiving, not that I've never been skydiving, but, and I've thought about it, but anyway. This presentation is, we're at the airport and we've just put it onto the plane. We're on the process of going up to 30,000 feet. I'm gonna present this, get your guys' feedback. Last time I asked for feedback, I received a little bit. But I want everyone, if at all possible, to give me your input about this video. And then the concerns that you see coming forward that are positive and negative to this situation, so I can present them according to our fashion. So with that, I hope.
Sorry. No, I'm not. That was more dramatic than I envisioned, but it sure carries a heavy punch.
It was a compelling video. I don't think data is gonna match up to it, though. We already heard from AJ last time, so I don't know that it's as dramatic of a situation as the video portrays.
Well, that is
And a
something
lot
to
of-
look at.
You know, it was nice to have the inserts of Canby pictures in there, but clearly most of that video wasn't even in our town.
Yeah.
It was part of the labeled Scottsdale,
Yeah.
so. So,
I threw that out, and then I just had a concern about the wrecked car, though, like, if that was a local person that died in that car, I think the parents should be aware.
yeah, the rural one,
Yeah.
yeah, and it was rural, where cameras wouldn't be, so I don't know if that's relevant. But, yeah, I don't know that we're gonna have
It's a
much
backflow of it, but.
The only thing is, I looked at Officer Miller's data about, traffic accidents and things like that. The thing is, the Department of Transportation has a high quota of what is acceptable number of traffic accidents.
They do, it's true.
I mean, you gotta have, I'm just going to number 5 accidents a year before they consider it a problem. And my tolerance is a lot lower. And that's just for the red flags. I think the idea about this cameras, we have de-emphasized the use of them for speeding. And that for me is a big impact too. And Ms. Hill's presentation today, and what we're gonna be discussing on North Territorial and North Vine is another, when we get to that study, you're gonna see it, the need for enforcement of traffic laws. And the impact that officers cannot be all over the place at all times, even targeted. But cameras, this radar enforcement can be.
So my interpretation, the way I stand on this is I came into this. I've been in Canby now at least 45 years, if not longer. And I came into it kind of reluctant to push the issue, but I was intrigued. I had an open mind into it when Bob presented it to me. And I decided to voluntarily pick up the torch and run with it. And I'm personally, as of today, I'm still 50-50. Unfortunately, I had missed AJ's presentation. And I haven't had a chance to watch it yet on feedback. And I'm gonna do that this afternoon. But I think the way I want to present this is that it's a tool in the toolbox. And yeah, even though this was said it was in Scottsdale, the photos are about 50-50. I tried to make it a little bit of the stock presentation and then our photos. Obviously, that gentleman wasn't a local resident, but that's why it was local and not, city of Canby. With that and the cactus, I thought I'd just throw in there for humor because that's obviously an Arizona technique. Trash cannons I thought were valid though. I would be interested to see that. But the biggest,
What's that?
it was a trash can
I saw the
turned
trash
into
can.
a radar.
Yeah, I was like, what are we gonna?
That's what
Was it advertising or was it a radar?
Yeah, it was a radar can. That's what a black screen was, is the protective cover over it. So they used, instead of posting a camera, they put a garbage can out on the street. So you still have to, according to state law, you still have to mark the area coming into that area with signs saying, video recording or traffic. Photo radar is worse. So you still have to present it, that they look up in the air for cameras and don't see any. It's actually the garbage can that does. So that with that presentation, it was a tool in the toolbox. And her being here this morning and presenting that case, to me sounds, she wants enforcement. And from what I was told from a reliable source in PD, is that they're not, they haven't given me input onto it, and I don't think they will, just from a neutral standpoint. But at least the contact that I had is they want personal contact with the individual that's doing the violation. Whereas I think the citizens just want it stopped. She made it very clear, she wants enforcement. So this is nothing more than a tool in the toolbox. And if the data doesn't present it, which I remember back several months ago, Bob presented one that the information said that, oh, sorry, only 2 cars sped actually, you know, on the street. Whereas the personal interpretation was every car, like she said, 90% of the cars. So.
When they're thinking past your house, it feels like more.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, there's no doubt about it.
And we should use data to, you know,
And that's where the data comes into. That's why I said this is a two-point presentation, video and then a video,
Yeah.
or I mean, a documentation presentation to support the video. So,
and we're gonna press forward because in a sense that we were starting to get traffic accident reports. You know, and we were starting to put together things, and quite frankly, my first blush at that, and I can show you the map that I started.
I remember that.
There was a lot of accidents
Yeah.
out around certain intersections.
Have it all typed up.
You know, I mean, especially Ivy and 99. So I'm a little skeptical about this, when there's not enough, what people say, there's not enough accidents. And I'm starting to, I'd like to get a real true picture of all the accident data, map them, and see what we're talking about. And how much is too many? How much is enough accidents for us to take some action to stop them?
It's a good question. And that's why I love this group, is you are very methodical in your process. You don't just have a knee-jerk reaction. She comes in with a compelling story and you're like, okay, we're gonna do something. You have a process, and you respect the process, and I respect you all for that. So I just want to applaud this group for your very thoughtful process.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That took a lot of effort.
Yeah, it took a lot of work and it shows.
yeah, it was very, let me phrase it, it's been very educational.
And I would just like to, my feedback is I'd like to expand this discussion from just red lights to speeding. Because I think we're not gonna be able to control the red light thing conversation too much. We can make recommendations, so it's important to do, but ODOT is really not willing to be flexible about it, but I think the speeding is within the city has authority to adopt a speeding camera usage throughout the city. And anyway.
So can I ask a couple questions real quickly? Time wise, did I start losing sort of interest in the video? Was it too long, too short?
Just all right.
I would say about right.
Yeah,
Okay,
if
good,
any longer it would have been too long, but
good. That's what I thought.
just, yeah, I think a little shorter could be good, but you're right there.
Okay, good.
Piques your conversation, whether you agree with it or not, it does pique your interest to get involved in the topic.
And you were concerned about authorization for footage?
Well, I mean, I just think it's respectful having lost a child.
I-
With friends, but
I totally 100%
that's
agree
what
with that.
that's why it's in my head.
And those,
I would
all
be
these,
okay with it for safety awareness.
all those pictures that were on that, one came off the internet, either via the documentation or me just simply going on.
So I'm sure
City of
it's
Canby.
out there publicly.
And so I pulled it off City of Canby Google search. Put it on there. So hence they're all open to the public as is.
Oh, I know.
You're absolutely right. How that would be addressed, I haven't learned that yet, so, but point taken. Point taken.
Thank you, Eric. Please continue. And bring us updates as you charge forward.
Hopefully next month I'll have a little bit more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any comments from people on the screen? Okay.
Clint?
Clint?
Oh, yes, I'd be always happy to share my thoughts. I think one of the things that's really important to consider is in a growing community like Canby is the ratio of police to citizens, because I think as our population has grown, our number of police and especially traffic officers that are out there needs to stay in lockstep with that growth. Because you can see across the country, when you reduce the number of police, it doesn't lead to good things.
Thank you, Clint. Good thought. That's something to look at. All right, moving on, speed data from North Vine area. Thank you once again, Spencer, for getting the equipment up and appreciate it. I emailed you folks, sorry for the lateness of getting it to you.
That was more my fault than Bob's.
I was trying my best to get it done. So you have it. Let me briefly go through it with you. I wasn't able to do that compiling of data that I did with Northwest 2nd Street, which is to target where the times of the speeders, because that's there's just too much volume here. And I didn't have time. I may try to go back to look at it a little bit more clearly, but if you look at it, there is a lot of traffic on a daily basis. There are 2,381 cars incoming. That means coming in from 99. To give you a reference point, Northwest 2nd Street, we were dealing with a volume of 230. So I mean, this Territorial is a very busy street. Now that's just one way. And outgoing traffic going toward 99 is 2,439 on a daily basis. So this is a high volume street. If you look at the data, it's also, if you look at the number of cars, interestingly, it's the first time I've really noticed that the volume of traffic is higher on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Now that in itself, I think even Spencer would say is unusual. There's usually a drop off on Saturday and Sunday, but in fact, the volume increases on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Is that from the Dahlia Festival?
This time period was over, it did include Labor Day weekend. So
They did the Dahlia Festival up in.
So maybe that has some effect, but the amount is kind of interesting. It's significant on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's not both one way, it's both ways. So it's just kind of interesting. The speed is very noticeable here. I'm gonna talk about 6 to 10 miles over the speed limit, okay? Which is 36 miles. 6 miles over the speed limit, to 10 miles over the speed limit, you have 4,825 vehicles during this period of time on a daily basis. And on a daily basis, this reflects 470 vehicles. 470 vehicles on a daily basis going at least 6 miles over the speed limit. Okay? In addition, for cars going 11 and 15 miles over the speed limit, you have 266 cars. I'm sorry, 61 cars. 61 cars on a daily basis going at least 11 miles over the speed limit. And then lastly, going on about this, cars going 16 to 20 miles over the speed limit. There were 74 of those, and this reflects 7 cars on a daily basis going 16 miles over the speed limit on a daily basis. And then lastly, cars going 21 to 25 miles over the speed limit. This reflects at least 1 car a day going at least 21 miles over the speed limit. That's coming in. Okay, now going out, we have cars going 6 to 10 miles over the speed limit we're 4,213 cars. This reflects 411 cars on a daily basis going at least 6 miles over the speed limit. Cars going 11 to 15 miles over the speed limit, there are 469 cars. This reflects 45.75 car vehicles traveling at least 11 miles over the speed limit. And then cars going 16 to 20 miles over the speed limit, there are 52 of them. This reflects 5 cars on a daily basis going at least 16 miles over the speed limit. And finally, cars going at least 21 to 41 miles. There was just one of those, but still.
But still, okay.
Actually, this reflects at least 1 car on a daily basis going at least 21 miles over the speed limit. That 1 car that was going 72 miles an hour. And so I was really surprised how much speeding there is, but it doesn't surprise me, to tell you the truth, as I really reflect on it, how, especially going out, Territory is used as a bypass street for people to avoid 99. Once they hit that past the 4-way stop, they are flying. And even with the lighted warning speed light that we've got up there, they're just flying. And if they see a green at Territorial, they're even picking up more speed to make the green light at the top of the hill. I don't know what to say, except the data speaks for itself.
Can I share a couple thoughts?
Sure.
This is Clint. Okay, sure. Thank you. First of all, thanks to Spencer and Jerry for putting up that measurement to measure the speed and the number of cars. And thanks very much to all the group for everything you do for the community. And thanks for looking at this particular area. As you can see, we have a speed problem in this area. It would certainly represent a safety issue crossing the road to go over to the park along the river. We have an enforcement problem. There's no perceived consequences for violators of speed. And there's home sites, 2 scheduled home sites right directly across from the intersection of Vine to be built, and those are going to be harder to sell. It affects the quality of life. It affects home values. And I'm awful sorry I'm not there with you to discuss, but very much appreciate everything you guys do. And this has really been kind of a work in progress. And I think, like a lot of communities, we need to identify possible solutions and then identify the best one. So that's what I had to share today. And again, thanks to everyone for all your efforts.
I've got a few things to say, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. So, any comments, thoughts about the study?
Yeah, I've got a couple, and I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase it. So. I'm just having a hard problem seeing in my mind. I'm trying to do, the balanced scale of justice here. You said earlier regarding, I'm using the presentation information, that link and this information. We know the definition of speeding. We have, you know, the speeds, 1 over, 5 over, 6 over. We have, I want to say classifications of speed violations. So, you know, you get a $50 ticket for 1 to 5 miles, 6 to 10, you get a $75 ticket. We have those levels. I know police want the interactions of saying, hey, you know, we don't want to cite everyone that does 1 mile and over, even though technically by law we can. You know, we don't normally violate people that until they do 11 over the speed limit. So, okay, well, we've already bumped up that threshold that you were talking about earlier that ODOT has. We've already bumped that up 1 level there. And now we're trying to counter what Clint just said, what you said, and what that young lady said about there's obviously a speeding problem. It impacts every aspect, and we need to do something about it. I'm not seeing, and then taking into consider what Tracy said about how this doesn't, the video presents it maybe possibly a little worse than what the data presents, if the data would be a little lighter. But this is an example of one piece of data, one little glitch that if we were to put one of the boxes up, radar speed box up at this location, your data would have said that at least one person would have got a really heavy ticket. That if they would have been stopped by a police officer, probably would have got their car towed. But at least with the ticket, they only, with our solution of just a radar box, at least the citizen just got a ticket instead of their car being towed. So we would be nice from that point of view. So I'm still teetering here.
The outlier who was really speeding, do we know what time of day it was?
I can find it out. I thought I looked at it. It was later in the day. I found that to mistaken, even the evening
I think typically for something that
reaches.
egregious is usually after,
Dark.
usually from like the 10:30 till about 4 or 5 in the morning kind of a thing. Typically, now, I have seen it in some of these reports too, where I think it was on North Redwood, that it surprised me that there was I think more than one person going close to 50 miles an hour at like 2 in the afternoon.
That's right.
Any other questions?
So, I apologize for being late, it was my building's first day of school.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So have you guys discussed at all, do we have potential mitigation options to consider, additional stop signs or speed humps or anything like that along this road? Not necessarily only because of this intersection at Vine, but just because we know Territorial all the way through has issues, and it's gonna keep getting worse as more people trying to bird off 99 to get, you know, into like the core residential areas. I mean, is it worth?
It's
talking
an
about that at
arterial
this point?
street.
Yeah.
Arterial, as far as putting any more stop signs.
That's what I expected.
it-
Cause I feel like we talked about it a little before. and
Stop
signs were-
signs. When I first joined this group, stop signs are not supposed to be used to mitigate speed.
Correct.
They're only state, that's a national standard. They can only be used, they should be only used as opposed to deal with competing interests.
Yeah.
And the traffic stop at Redwood and Territorial is that there was problems with traffic being able to flow in and it was dangerous, so that justified that traffic stuff, so. Speed bumps or humps or raises is an issue,
Controversial.
It is a very controversial, I'll say that probably the biggest hurdle, especially on Territorial, is going to be, probably for fire. Transporting, that's always been the biggest concern, is anyone that they're transporting in EMS.
Yeah, I didn't want to be off.
Yeah.
And it's a long road.
And it is a very long road.
The stop signs don't seem terribly unreasonable, like if we had one, is it Maple that runs kind of like the north end of the campground area? Fairground area, and then they've got Ivy, which currently doesn't have one, but if we had a couple more at some of our major roads that are also inevitably going to have heavier traffic into the future.
Fairground's actually Pine, but isn't that too close to the stop sign at Redwood?
It's not a matter of where it's too close to, it's a matter of having equal traffic flow in all
Both
directions.
Oh, okay.
So if there's not enough traffic on Pine compared to traffic
And Pine
on,
tees into Territorial, or
Correct.
Redwood crosses it, granted down here, but there's still traffic coming out of here, where there isn't, hopefully isn't traffic coming out of the trees onto it.
correct,
We have an arterial road, I mean, is it going to be out of balance in terms of how many cars are,
eventually,
different?
you might see a little bit more traffic flow on some of those roads like Maple or Pine. Possibly even on Ivy, if and when, that field, if it gets developed and there's an entrance into the neighborhood right through there, you could possibly see it, but at the same time, like Pine is pretty much built out. There's not gonna be a great big influx of homes
Yeah.
on that street. There's a few little fill-ins, but it's not going to generate thousands of trips a day to justify or warrant making that into an always stop,
So you
Yeah,
can't
the
put
only-
anything on an arterial road.
unless it's warranted from equal traffic flow.
The only road that has some possibility in the future, quite frankly, is, at this point, is Maple.
Correct.
Because it has, see, Pine doesn't have another street, it's a three-way.
And Ivy doesn't unless the intersection
Yeah,
happens.
you know, and so Maple has some potential, but the flow at this point isn't steady.
Right.
The
only other current situation I can see is a future possibility of Ivy.
A future at Ivy and then possibly a future at Maple, if and when everything that is on kind of the west side of Maple that's currently farm fields, if 10, 15, 20 years, if that all turns into a housing development, that's gonna generate a lot more trips per day. So then it would be looked at that time.
But it'd still have to be kind of assessed on.
It would be. And the thing is for you to get more trips on those side streets, you're gonna have more trips on Territorial itself.
Yeah, so
So
it's kind of catch 22.
it is.
And it gets to be, anyway. As you can see, part of this is us needing to show to the police where they're stationed their police officers for enforcement too. Right now, the law of enforcement, if an officer is enforcing on Territorial, it's usually around the Methodist church area.
Over Holly. Holly.
between Holly and Locust is where I see the officers usually park.
I'll see them there, they used to always sit right out here where, the sidewalk would kind of come to an end. Sometimes they'll sit down at the corner of Territorial where it makes the jog over. We've had them sit at our lift station a couple of times, so they've got a couple of locations that they like to sit and kind of patrol. I think it would just be a matter of how much time do you want to spend with, because that's, for me personally as a driver, if I see a police officer, I think this is for everybody, is your first instinct is, how fast am I going?
Yeah.
And so once they see that car, so just the presence alone drops the speed.
Right.
And I don't want to speak for
Yeah.
the police.
No,
I
I
mean, just
But-
have a police car just sit there.
Well, they've done some studies about that. It's sort of,
It works for more on.
you can't be
It works until it doesn't.
parked there too long because they quickly find out it's empty.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, there's a need for the police officers to add Vine Street as a lookout point, which I don't think they use. Because there's a lot, the data shows that there's a lot of speeding in that area. There's so much speeding in that area that this conversation started with, Clint talking about putting in a sidewalk. You know, to join the Pine Street development there across the street to, and I don't know if there is one or not, I was supposed to go and drive up there. Is there a crosswalk?
Where are you talking about?
Right at the top of the hill by Pine, right? You know where Pine Street.
And that's where I
I'm sorry.
request a crosswalk.
See, there's no crosswalk there.
Putting a crosswalk in it.
Yeah. After looking at this data, I would be scared to put a crosswalk there. Quite frankly. Now, do they deserve a crosswalk? Certainly.
Could we recommend a crosswalk with one of the blinky signs that you can push the button?
Yeah,
kind of
but-
like by schools?
But the amount of crossing, the amount of people, that is an expensive,
It is.
and we got so much needs of that. Blinking all near our schools. That, you know, what I mean, when you look at the costs versus the volume, I'm not too sure. You know, how many people.
Yeah, there's not enough volume to merit a digital or lighted crosswalk, but it does merit having a regular crosswalk in the road because that's a main thoroughfare to people to cross, walking their dogs or going for a walk, but not with the digital.
I totally support that. At the same time, I'm scared. You know, first, I'm scared with the data that I just looked at. To put a sidewalk there. Unless we
Well,
do,
it'd be less scary to cross with a crosswalk than without one.
yeah, well, I totally agree, Clint. I'm not arguing against the side crosswalk. I just said. We should be doing something about the speeders.
The only problem with that though is by law, it already is a crosswalk because it's two intersections.
Yes.
So all you're doing by putting in a crosswalk is giving the pedestrian a false sense of security. Now by saying, oh, hey, I'm protected by this crosswalk, when in reality, you said and heard earlier, no one obeys speed laws or
But is
traffic laws anyway.
it the same? Cause I thought in Oregon, it was only like the marked, crosswalks that you have to stop for now, it's all.
It's,
Well,
yeah.
Good to know. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
So, I mean,
Interesting.
so you're right, I'm in the same boat as you. I don't wanna give false sense of security to anybody.
I mean, they deserve a crosswalk, no doubt. But I tend to think. At the same time, we've got a problem with speeding in that area. Does anybody disagree with it?
It's the truth, how can you disagree?
And I think it's just gonna get worse.
Yeah, it was just, it's sad how much speeding there is.
mean, it just, what boggles my mind is that there really isn't any recourse for situations like this. I mean, it's gotta happen all over, the country, every city, every state, so it just seems.
Sure, crosswalk, I do.
That we don't have.
And I'm challenging you folks that I suspect when we do 13th,
It's gonna be the same.
we're gonna have the same kind of look, see.
So,
Yeah, there's times, and there is a crosswalk, but I take like 3 or 4 times to check because people aren't always paying attention, and then within a week, I think we had 2 accidents where the sign went in.
Yeah.
Middle of the road, someone didn't
What
see it because of
accidents?
sun
Yeah.
glare. There was someone that had sun glare and they ran over the 2 signs for the median strip.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
It did, and, the guys have, he puts a tally mark on the back side of the sign for how many times he could replace the sign or reinstall the existing sign before we need a new one.
It happens a lot.
And,
We went 13 enough.
it was, he got a chuckle out of it because
That's a picture.
he had put it up on a Tuesday, and I think by Friday he had to go reinstall it again.
There all the time. How is that hard to see?
No, there's certain times of the day, like.
Yeah.
It's a crosswalk or 13th, you can't see because of the sun glare, which is another thing.
yeah.
But,
We
you
can't do
know,
anything about the sun.
Excuse me, this is common about whole society. If you're gonna encounter a problem repeatedly, whose responsibility is to come up with a solution? Yourself, right? Get a pair of sunglasses. If you're gonna drive into the glare every day, get a pair of sunglasses or go a different route. If you
yeah, but they
can't-
don't think it's a problem until they run over the side, and they're like, oops.
Going back to Clint's crosswalk thing, I have a question. Is there, I know we have the threshold for stop signs, what is the threshold for putting in a painted crosswalk? Is there like rules that standards on?
No, kind of like Eric had said, is that any intersection in the state of Oregon
Yeah,
is technically a crosswalk and pedestrians have the right of way. The only places where you would have to put in a striped crosswalk to signify would be a mid-block crossing. But intersections technically can be striped. There really isn't a threshold that
we
you
don't have
have to.
to, but we could.
Yes,
We've kind of used the criteria, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, where it has become a problem. And we want it to be much more significant to the driver coming through. If you see a crosswalk, you're starting to, that you should at least be looking at both sides. I think that's why we painted
That's-
most crosswalks
yeah,
that we have in Canby, aside from the required ones. If they're at a certain intersection, the most noticeable was on Ivy Street. I think 2nd or 3rd Street, we have a few painted crosswalks, and that was driven by. Yoo-hoo, slow down. But I don't know if those streets have the speed that we're talking about here.
I don't think that, I think that South Ivy is traveled heavily enough that I don't know that people get the opportunity to just blow through there just because there is so much traffic, people turning or everything else that I think people drive slower on South Ivy than they do right here on Territorial. And I think the majority of that is kind of what we've touched on before, where it's from intersection of Redwood up to 99 is there's not driveways, other streets coming in. It's got an open field on one side and a brick wall on the other than at those intersections. So you kind of get a little bit of a false sense of this road feels like I should be driving faster. And originally, when that road was designed, the speed limit was 45.
And there, a lot of this traffic is bypassing Canby. There's no investment in Canby. They want to get out to get on their road to either go to Oregon City or out. So they're just zooming through.
Or they're cutting through to get to Knightsbridge to get to 5, and they're trying to get around 99.
Yeah.
Because if you take Territorial and then you take something like Holly down just a little bit, you can get on Knightsbridge to get out.
So as somebody that actually drives that to get home every day, I don't know that I have ever followed a vehicle all the way to get out Knightsbridge. And that's driving that every day.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the Territorial Birch bypass, somebody that drives it multiple times a day, I have never once seen a vehicle get off 99 and then follow them all the way to the Knightsbridge to leave town to avoid 99 the way that everyone says. I'm not saying that there's not people that do that. I personally
You're
don't.
not seeing it now.
I personally don't see it.
Anticipate it once 99 gets worse. Than
I think
200
that,
converted,
yes.
but if it's not happening now.
I think the majority of it though is if you lived on the backside of the fairgrounds. And if I was coming from Oregon City 205, I would take Territorial and drive and then turn down Pine
Yeah.
or Maple than I would to go
Yeah.
and hit the lights to get to some of the different north sides.
And as a citizen, of the city, as opposed to people going through the city.
Right.
Yeah. So folks. I'll put it on the agenda for next month to see if there's something that we want to do about this. Aside from
Is there any?
meeting, I'm gonna make it a point, to tell you the truth, to see if I can have coffee with Officer Miller. And share with him both the North Second Street study and this one. Asking him to look at the location of police officer enforcement. You know, that's what best we can. Does anybody have any other?
I got 2. One is circling back to the North Second. So was there not enough cross traffic to seriously consider a stop sign there?
Excuse me,
Was there not an, so I didn't see the study for North Second.
Austin?
That's on me.
Okay.
The last couple days have been nuts.
I can try to email it out to you guys.
But
again.
did, was it showing that there wasn't enough traffic on, Second to justify a stop sign at Elm, or were we looking at a different area in that one?
Oh, this is different.
This was
Down in the bottoms, that
Darcy Estates.
down by the, past the post office,
Gotcha,
below
further
the
down, okay.
part of police department, so it's a different.
The other thought was just kind of a long-term planning thing. If we're seeing particular issues, that we've got data on now, but we aren't able to take action on, we're looking at future development on Territorial at the intersections of, you were saying Pine in particular, or, potentially Ivy, would we potentially be in a position to recommend a roundabout gets installed if those areas are developed further? Like to make it kind of a condition of the development that a roundabout was put in there instead of having to put in 4-way stops? A little more abstract, but I'm
that
trying to
is,
think like.
I
if it would be
think a
worth it.
little bit more of that would have to. It would be possible, but I think there would be a lot more data that would need to be collected before we could justify requiring any conditions of approval for roundabout to go.
Yeah, so we can kind of proactively recommend that if this gets developed, we want to.
Is there a bigger street?
Yeah, and that's the problem with roundabouts take up a lot of of space.
Here's what's big.
Cost when we try. I believe Clint and a lot of us recommended a roundabout at Redwood and Territorial. Which quite frankly makes the most sense for, but the cost was several $1 million
Oh my goodness.
to put in a roundabout. The roundabout they built in Malala was what, $7 million?
I believe so.
Something like that.
How on earth is it so expensive to plop some cement down and put some?
Stay around.
It's the real estate.
Not only that, it also, it brought up to me was the electrical and plumbing is extensive because all the wiring, especially like at Redwood.
Yeah, so right here, when you're leaving, if you notice, there's the power pole right there next to the stop sign. That power pole would have to be removed or relocated, but that's a junction point for all of the transmission lines. So all of those have to be moved as well.
Yeah.
And I believe that, well, this was probably 5 years ago when it was very first brought up. That's actually a PGE transmission line, and they said, unless you have $1 million, we're not even going to look at moving just the one pole.
Yeah.
They give us a quote of $1 million just for the.
That 100% answers all my questions. I mean, there's no sense than an actual stop sign.
I love roundabouts, but the cost is so.
They just did that one,
Yeah.
decided by now 205. It's interesting, the whole, trying to get on the freeway now.
Is it done?
Is it like the other side of the bridge?
Okay, let's move on. So we will revisit this issue next month. Discussion about Northwest Elm and Third Street. Okay, conscious, 10:30, sorry. We'll be through. Any further discussion about this? This is, continues to be a very concerned.
Talking this one.
Elm.
Northwest Third.
I think it's the one with the post, Elm is.
Yeah, I mean, second,
Down,
third,
I think it's second.
yeah, for me, I'm concerned about second, third, and fourth.
Well, I think that the biggest is second, right? The one
Second
right
is
next
Post
to
office.
the rental,
Yeah,
That is the worst.
yeah, but
Right here.
third and fourth are, yeah, so this is the number one.
There's a food cart there now.
And there's a food cart there, yeah, but third and fourth are concerning too, because then they're right up there by the elementary school. So basically, we've got all the traffic between the post office and the elementary
People are,
school.
it's crazy right here.
Yeah, well, it's because it's such a wide street. And then cars do park on both sides of it. It's really difficult to have visibility to cross Elm at those three intersections. So,
Yeah, I personally don't have as much problem with third and fourth. I travel all those all the time. Second is a nightmare though.
and, you know, I was thinking about this and people have said a four-way stop, but there may be some argument because of the traffic flow, but if you put in a four-way stop here, the impact of Elm.
but isn't that much worse? Cause every other intersection in that whole area is a
No.
four-way stop if you're on any other street.
You have this is a truck route.
This is
First,
the.
it's a big truck route, and also the backup for when the train goes by, it is outrageous. It backs up tremendously.
The simple solution is to limit CRA's use of that road, but. Or that's hard too.
Yeah.
Can we figure out a parking? Application or something? I think we should yellow curve the whole area from first to second on Elm, but that's just me.
He goes, paint.
Not too concerned over the paint itself. I did meet with Camby Rental, was that yesterday morning.
I mean, their sign is kind of intrusive too.
So the sign, I agree with them putting the sign out there because it is a safety concern with this alignment of the street, and it's not so much just for Cammy rental, but anyone that is using Cammy rental. If Bob's going to get his weed whacker worked on down there, you know, there is, with this misalignment through here, we talked to them and they're working with their guys to make sure that they're not setting it out, clear out into traffic and it's not straight out, that it is going to be tapered.
Yeah.
And that does happen, and they apologize if that was going on, but they are working on doing an angled and no more than 8 feet out, as if it was a parked car with more than enough room for people to work over, because yes, with the new curb coming out, that one's not on here. It does kind of keep you in that lane a little bit longer, but at the same time, the layout of the road hasn't actually changed.
Right. Okay.
You know, given that. That's not the main reason problem for Second and Elm. Second and Elm is just, like people have said, it's a wide intersection. And there's a lot of cars flowing on Elm.
Yes.
And you trying to get across, you have to be very patient.
It can be very patient and it can be hard to see, especially the stuff that's coming from the.
It's like too front.
Yeah, well, but not everybody does that. Like when you look at like the bicyclists who get hit and whatnot, like if you look at those reports, like people are always getting hit over by the post office. They've got a lot of community traffic using Second to get across town to go over to the post office for the people who live in those little townhomes down by all the pits.
Tracy, what do you think?
Second, I don't know what we need to do. We need to do something. I mean, I would prefer just have the parking along that area. I think, I mean, four-way stop sounds good, except for the impacts on backing up at certain times of day, especially. It's already backed up past the church
Yeah.
on Elm, and we don't have a stop sign in place. So adding more stop signs will make that worse. Potentially, it could make people go a different route, potentially, but we do have the issue of that is the truck route. They can't go another way. So I don't know what the answer is.
Can I suggest we have a field trip out to that location?
Sure.
I thought we had one already done.
Oh,
Okay.
Not collectively. I think we're all familiar with it. I don't remember
Okay.
it's all on
Would
your.
you guys like to take a field trip?
That too.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's do it about
When would you like to do it?
1:30 in the afternoon.
Pardon me?
Like 3:30 in the afternoon, when all the traffic is in the way.
Okay, what day would you guys like to do?
Okay.
Monday would work because I'd have an adult who could stay with my small child.
Monday,
A Monday, it doesn't have to be.
3 o'clock, 3:30?
3 o'clock works, 3:30 either for
What
me.
day of the week is that? What
Monday
day
is the
what
18th,
18th,
about 3 o'clock.
September 18th,
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Okay,
okay, perfect.
meet at the church, what, you wanna meet on the church side or the?
Well, the
food
church is
cart
on the
side?
third.
No, the church is right there on Second.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there's two churches.
Yeah.
There's
Chapel was
a food cart right there. We'll meet by.
Get a meatball.
So you buy your lunch.
No. But I don't, if you guys want to, everybody else buy theirs, I'll buy it. Okay, and we'll look at it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last point the last one was the discussion about having on Third and North Knox. There's a set of cars that park always on Third, making vision to go across Knox into
Jerry
the
was talking.
parking lot.
Yeah, that's how I heard.
Yeah, Jerry was gonna talk to the president.
He did.
Right there.
He did.
See? Now that is, today, they have a smaller car there. But usually, it's that big truck or a big SUV.
Yeah, the last meeting we reminded him that he's.
And I've sent you guys pictures.
I will ask him if he did. He didn't mention anything to me. I don't know if he did talk with them or not.
You saw my email and said thanks. So I don't know if that was you.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just pointing out the problem that you have to, as a driver, you have to come all the way out into the bike lane before you can even see to cross that street.
But it is technically a parking lane, so but it should maybe the corner be yellow, I mean, it's all the way to the corner there. There's no yellow curb there at all.
Trouble is, if you paint yellow there, it eliminates parking in front of that street, that house.
Looking at this, actually,
They have a driveway, have to find a place for their cars. I mean,
Yeah, I'm just saying, but I challenge any one of you to go down there on any day
oh, I know.
and you try to get across that street. It is hazardous.
Yeah, I avoid not because of it.
Yeah.
I'll just come down,
Oh, look at you.
I think instead.
I didn't even know that was an option.
Cool.
Like in Kennedy or something.
There is no reason why we shouldn't be painting that. But I can understand, the grumbling people, but that is. If there was an accident there, and probably sometime they're gonna be one, the city's gonna have a liability problem. Because that clearly is a long-standing issue.
And they can park on the other side.
Yes, they can park a lot of places.
Yeah, but unfortunately, right now, they can park right.
Yes,
No, since they have so many other options, to me, it seems quite reasonable to request that we paint that.
now the flip side is if you go straight up Knox again, at the same time. On this intersection, go, back up, right there, forward.
that fourth,
Yeah, right there on that curve. On going toward the fairground,
this one right here.
yeah. That's another one. That Fourth is a well-traveled road. There's a lot of flow traffic coming from, Pine, coming past the fairgrounds, they come into the town. People use that as a, and there's always a truck parked right at that corner. Which makes making that turn, because Fourth is a kind of narrow street. It has 2 lanes and has parking on both sides and it's ample, but when you have to hook around and you have a truck parked there, it's a little bit more difficult. It's just not too problematic to see because there's not 2 trucks parked there. Usually there's one so that you can look past that truck and see it, Just saying, you have the same kind of issues here where when you have to make turns on our narrow streets, you're gonna run into problems.
Question.
So that truck that parks is on Fourth.
Yes,
Okay, so this being a perfect example. How did that yellow stripe get painted?
Right here.
Yeah,
that's not, that
Was it
yellow
a-
is just,
was it brought up by citizen? Did you just paint it?
Thanks,
Did it sell
Honestly,
That's the ADA right there, though.
yeah, I don't know
Kinda.
why that's
Agree,
painted.
why would we-
I
It goes to make sense.
I didn't paint it. I don't
Building
know.
versus.
Seems like it's not.
no,
I know at one point in time, when we were doing, the Locust Street improvements, that this street was going to be, well, there was a lot, we were gonna include this in that project just to do some infill with sidewalks and get that all dressed up. We ran into
Everybody's
right of
crazy.
way easements, and then for how much space we have, the only thing we could do was to turn it into a one-way. And There was some people that don't like one-way conversations, and so it got dropped.
That was
Is
right
that,
before I was on council, but I heard about it. I think
Yes.
Brian was on council, but I was in,
It was-
not mayor yet, and yeah, he said that was the first.
I was
time
on
to see
the
the chair.
the transportation system plan, and we talked about one-way streets in Canby, and it was very terrifying. People were very, very angry.
yes, there's not very many people that like one-way streets, that if you wanna fill council chambers, that's what we will do.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like that.
Although I would agree with a one-way street proposition on South Second and Third. I would agree with that,
So
between Grant and Elm.
getting back to the strike meeting,
Especially
can you
in
find, did you find out if the city of Canby, or you guys, since you're the painters, have the dues and bills about intersection painting? Something that's already been established in the past before your time,
So
what the standards are?
the standard is I could potentially technically go out and paint every intersection from the apex of the corner 30 feet in both directions. That is standard. So that's what I was doing with the measurement is so
See where the car was right in the 27 feet.
just seeing where it is, it kind of turns into a maintenance. Whereas, I mean, that would be probably 3 to 4 people full time for an entire summer to try to go out and paint every single one.
And then the average paint life lasts 2 years.
Yeah.
So that's just where it kind of turns into a,
That's the answer.
it's like realistically, how many can we actually maintain? And how many of them actually need that extra?
Right, and so we try to be respectful and only identify ones that have traffic flow that warrants and is kind of hazardous. You know, how blocking are you? You know, and that's why the Knox and third or second, is concerning one. Okay, let's move on. Reports, city reports. That's good, only half an hour left. Planning, Brianna, you still around?
I am. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Really the big update is I also just want to encourage everyone, tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Canby Police Station. We are doing our comprehensive plan community summit. It's a great opportunity to have your voice heard directly. Everyone will be there essentially, you know, from Canby Planning. So if you have any questions, comments, just again, highly encourage everyone to attend if you're able. There's also going to be another one November 14th. So if you're not able to make it this month, we are going to have more. And one other thing, just quickly, because Clint brings this up, we do have the beer library scheduled on the 23rd of October for Planning Commission. And as long as that doesn't change, it's about a 90% sure we're gonna make that date. So all of the materials will be up on the website October 13th for that project. So if anyone's interested in seeing all of that, all of those materials, they will be available.
The other one, can you speak to there was a pre-construction meeting about memory care facility being built on the corner at the intersection of 13th and Ivy. How is that going?
We have put it back on the applicant to address some issues they had on their plans, and we're waiting for those to be resubmitted.
And I just throw out to the group, that talks to the impact of speed. Because one of the exits would be onto Ivy. And also the impact at the lighted intersection, the dedicated turn. So it's very timely that we're pushing those two issues. Okay, any other questions for Brianna? Yes.
Actually, what's the progress on Chipotle? I keep getting asked this.
On Chipotle,
Yeah,
I know that their site plan is under review. Emma's processing it. I can check to see if she has issued it yet and let you know.
are they remodeling the building or are they gonna do a new building? That's the other,
They're doing, it's a pretty extensive remodel,
okay.
but yeah, they are technically keeping the building, but it's gonna look pretty different.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, that's all I have for that one, I just get asked that almost on the daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have Emma give you an update.
I was trying to make it clear and handy, because they're like making all these suggestions. No, I actually said, planning board, no, and Sean Marvin's like, well, that sounds like a good source, so I'm like, no, it's in the planning board, guys. They're not taking me.
Public Works.
Trying to think on what we have for major updates right now. I don't know what all Jerry had brought up in the last meeting. Currently, right now, we have a contractor doing a sewer repair on North Birch Street, so that'll be closed during the day for the remainder of this week, and then hopefully done with that. Trying to think on what other major updates or reports I really have.
You have approval for the contracting for engineering for 10th and the Pine
Yes.
in
Yep.
reroute.
Yeah, so I wasn't involved with the majority of that portion, because that's further. Right, I get involved later down the line, but yes, I believe council, did you guys do 2 readings on that one or just one?
Which one, the,
Engineering for 10th line,
you said how to say?
yeah, so I believe that the engineer is working on updating the design from a decade ago when, and they're working on acquiring the right of way. I think he's got a pretty good majority of them. So yeah, we'll see more of that probably later. Yes, I'd say we'd probably see more of that in the January, is when we see actual plans and get going on trying to get a contractor for that.
And Ivy Street.
Ivy Street, the county is planning for construction to begin. The last I heard from them was April 1st of 24 for the sidewalks going in on Ivy.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting tired.
So that project that has been on the books for probably 15 years has a new start date for April 1st.
Was it?
April 1st. Yeah,
So if they put in the sidewalks, then they probably are talking about moving toward paving at some point, because I mean, once you put in the sidewalks, then you've got curving to put in the sidewalks.
yeah, so the county is planning on doing all of the sidewalk improvements, and then the city is going to be working in conjunction with them of resurfacing the road. Kind of at the same time or right after, kind of.
Not to put you in the spot, but they already talked about need for wires. That there's a backlog in wires, and I think they probably have put in the conduits already, it's just the wires need to go into the conduits, or is there need to put the conduits in?
Part of the wire was originally supposed to show up in July. It has now been pushed back to September or October of 24 before the wire will be here. Yeah, and as far as the conduit goes, part of the conduit has been installed. I don't know if Canby Utility is going to get all of the conduit in. We were supposed to have a meeting earlier this week on kind of how much Canby Utility was going to be able to get done between now and April 1st for undergrounding Whole Street or not, so I don't know where they're at with all of that.
Hoping they'll get the conduits done before they pave the street.
Yes, and kind of the problem is some of that with it feeding existing, like a church or a township in Ivy. The main feeder that's running down township, they can't install the conduit until they have the wire to actually connect it over. So part of that will eventually have to get dug up again, just to be able to connect those, because they can't turn the power off for a year waiting for wire to get here. No. So,
That's amazing.
Are they still thinking about putting in light at Township and Ivy around the same time that
that is going in with that project.
this project? I got one other thing that might be Brianna, you, did we figure out what that thing is at the corner of Township and Redwood? Over by Baker Prairie that they put in, there was a cement pad with a black fence around it. Still there.
Jerry was going to ask about that.
It's either electrical or a water
Yeah.
meter or something.
It looks like it's a Trost, it's on Trost's property
Oh, okay.
on the corner, it's right there. It's that would be a school district question.
Yeah, you can see the machinery right there. They have a cement pad and a black fence around it.
Oh,
It's just around that box. Or is it the side? I can't
Down,
remember.
right there.
Yeah, that's where they're putting it. Currently, there's a black fence box. Yeah.
I don't know what they installed there, I'll have to drive over
It
there.
was more a matter of curiosity than anything else. It's
Gotcha.
not this urgent thing, I'm just like,
What the heck is that? Yeah.
All right, city council liaison.
I don't have a lot to report. We did swear in our new counselor at the last meeting, so we have Counselor Daniel Stearns on board. The rest, I think, was pretty much updated by Brianna as far as the Canby Peer Library goes. I guess another reminder to everybody, comp plan meeting tomorrow. And if you're gonna try to drive around Lake Park this weekend, it'll be interesting. It's Oktoberfest those days,
Okay.
so maybe avoid there if you're trying to get from point A to point B by car, because I think they're gonna have rather road close. That's all I have, unless you have questions.
when we bring in a counselor, where it was like you guys voted to bring them in, then do they fill out the term of the person who left and then they're up for election?
And usually, it depends on at what point in the term they come on, so in this case, they will only go until the next election, because Councilor Barway resigned within a couple of months of beginning. So we don't go the whole 4 years with the new person, they just go to the next election, so typically we have 3 counselors on the ballot at a time, but this time it'll be 4.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My only issue is just, at crosswalks this morning, as I was coming here, there was an irritated driver that didn't like having to wait for the high schoolers to cross the street. And he just tried to push his way in, and I'm just glad that the kids started walking slower, so I'm not sure if with, I mean, I just think the police hopefully can be more of a precedent around.
You said the police, which remind me, I had one more thing to report in my thing. I actually texted the chief. So if, I don't know if Clint's still on, it doesn't look like he is. But to answer his question, the standard for the West Coast is 1.5 officers per 1,000. And we're currently at 1.36, but we're down 2 officers that they're actively recruiting. So once we get those 2 officers on board, we will be at 1.47. So we're pretty close to the standard.
That's good.
How long does it take for them to do the kind of recruiting and onboarding process?
It depends on if they get a lateral or if they have to put somebody through the academy. So.
And the academy's really back
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're working on it actively, so we should have a couple officers, hopefully.
Clint?
I don't think he's not on the screen anymore.
Okay,
He said, yeah.
Jennifer.
Nothing super duper pressing. We're gonna be taking a look at health and second, third, fourth area.
Jackie?
Just one of the second, parents complains about Southwest 13th in this meeting, and I see the same thing. With the citizens, I mean, we both live on the street and you see the traffic and concerns of the, yeah, I just want to say that, another thing she said. And that's it.
Eric? No. My only comment is, I wish people would think about others. No, think about we instead of me. And even from sidewalks that their plants are overflowing to, that you have to dodge around, to little things. To the nice speeding, you crossing the street, so I get irritated, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Everyone's just in a hurry to get where they need to go, and it's like, think about things.
Everybody's in a hurry, so,
Yes.
yeah, we all have to get somewhere. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay,
Yeah.
and just remember as well, before the meeting, somebody with the gas company called and they are installing a new gas main on South Ivy in front of the sidewalk project. They are starting today. Today they're doing more of the potholing and everything else, but they're going from 13th to 2nd.
Oh, wow.
So they will be on South Ivy, on the east side of the road for.
The church side or the not church side? Give me directionals.
Church side.
Church side, all right. I need landmarks. I know. Literally, don't tell me.
Well,
So turn towards the Chipotle, yeah.
And Amity is in a weird vortex where we're slightly turned and with 99 running through the center, everyone always thinks 99 runs north and south, unless
It's northbound or southbound, which is
Yes.
true, but it's.
if you've
not-
ever driven it at either the late afternoon or early morning, you know that it actually runs east and west because the sun is always in your eyes.
Yeah, that's true, and that's what I'm like.
Well, thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Bob.
Answer, thank you very much for your technical help.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Just-